Welcome everybody to Vibe Dojo. My name is Jeff Batt. This is Destry Hildenbrand as well, and we are joined here with Diane Elkins. We are at the ATD 2026 conference, and we are basically just here to chat about Vibe Code and talk with Diane about some of the stuff that she's been working on, especially when it comes to accessibility with Vibe Code. It's an important topic that we wanted to dive in a little bit. So I'm going to let Diane just kind of set the stage. If you want to introduce yourself, talk about some of your project, and Destry and I will just ask questions as we go along here.
Okay.
So,
I'm Diane Elkins. I'm with Artisan Learning. We're a custom learning design firm. And one of the things we do as a company is we make sure every course that we create is accessible to people with disabilities. So you might have somebody who's colorblind and maybe can't see something with low color contrast. Or recently I broke my wrist. And so I had trouble using a keyboard very quickly. Or maybe they can't use a mouse at all and have to use a keyboard. Or maybe I can't see and I have to use a screen reader. So if we look at tools like Storyline and Rise, they have a lot of it baked in, and there's also a lot that you have to do, and they have these nice little tools that make it easy. But when you're vibe coding, if you want to make sure that everyone has access to what you're creating, you need to bring some of it to the table yourselves. Now, my hope is that in some future release, it's just going to be the default, and we don't have to do the manual work. But right now, we need to do some of the manual work.
because I know a lot of with web development, you had to think about that. So if you're, out of our industry, if you're actually a web developer, you had to implement a lot of the accessibility
Yeah.
yourself as well. And I think since we're now vibe coding and we're building web content, that's a mentality that we need to get used to a little bit more. So,
And the good news is that it's a little bit in the between. So I don't have to go all the way to know what an ARIA code is and how to program it. You don't have to go all that way like a web programmer would have to do back in the day, but I can't just push a button either,
yeah.
unfortunately.
So you're saying you can't just say to AI, "Hey, make this accessible."
No, and it will lie to you. It will say, "Oh, and here's all the things I've done," and it lies to you. So I'd like to walk everybody through a sample I just made.
Yep, that's good.
So I am working with a sample here that's a commission calculator. So imagine you are doing sales enablement and you're trying to help salespeople improve two metrics: the number of sales they have per week and the average size of the sale. And so to help get them motivated, we want to do a commission calculator. If you just move up one sale more per week, or you bump your average sale up $250, what does that mean for your annual commission? So I have the prompt here that I used. Artisan Learning is a Claude shop, so I put this together in Claude. I just did Claude chat. And so I want some sliders so that they can adjust it. I want to show their annual commission, and then I want some action areas where they can answer a question. What's one thing I can do this week to make this number go up? What's one thing I can do to make that number up?
So you did this for your own company? Like, and
No,
what?
it's
Okay.
just a sample.
Just a sample. Okay.
I have done something similar for other companies,
Okay.
in Storyline with variables and if-thens and all kinds of stuff that took a lot of time to do.
Okay.
So, and then I asked for a sleek, modern design using navy blue and taupe. So let's say those are our corporate colors.
Sleek and modern. I love it.
I know.
Yeah.
So I always add that in because otherwise who knows what it's going to get. So I put that in, and then the first thing I got here, and it really bugs me that it's not centered, but that's not the point of today's lesson, is I look at this and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. And I get all sucked in, like, here's my average sales per week. And if I just do, two more sales a week, I made an extra $20,000 this year just by making two more sales every week. And then what if my average sale goes up a little bit? That's awesome. And then what's my focus? What's one thing I can do this week to increase my sales? And I go, great, I'm ready to go live. But the number one problem I see first is it's got lousy color contrast. And it's not surprising because the world has lousy color contrast. It is very common, it's very on trend to do low color contrast. Light gray on white, aqua on white, everything on white. And so here, if I look at this and my slider, the 2,000 to the 5,000 for average sale, that is very low contrast. The instructions here in my text entry box, you are going to be excluding a big part of your audience. So I went in and I tried it a couple of different ways. I added to my prompt, use good color contrast. Nope, didn't work. I said use WCAG 2.0 AA color contrast. Didn't work. And if you don't know, WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, it's the international standard for how to make content accessible. And so there are actual numerical ratios that are best practices. So for big, large text, it's 3:1. So if you think about color contrast, 1:1 is color on color. So blue on blue, black on black, white on white. It's 0 contrast, 1:1. The most extreme black and white is 21:1. So what WCAG says is for big stuff, 3:1, small stuff, 4.5:1. So I put that in my prompt. Didn't do it. I mean, it made it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I got to, when I got specific, I got to this version, which was centered. I feel so much better. But it's still not really great contrast everywhere. So I need to bring more to the table. And I'm thinking, I just asked, 5 different ways. But I asked in the original prompt. I always debate, and I know you guys talk about this. Do you go back and change your prompt and redo everything, or do you just tweak as you go? And I have found that adjusting the original prompt doesn't work all that well, but tweaking as you go does. Now, I think you should always add a prompt about color contrast. You should always, in your original, even if it's going to get it wrong, put it in. In fact, I recommend putting it in a Readme file. Like, just make it part of your preference. Why should AI make anything with bad color contrast?
Yeah.
Like, make it just your default. Just put it in your preferences.
How would you prompt a color contrast? I'm thinking like, how would I go about saying, hey, does this needs to be color contrast, or like, what's the prompt for that?
Right. What I would typically do is write up the numerical values. I have found I get the best results from that. They're not great, but they're the best. And that is use a color contrast of 3:1, which is 3:1, 3:1 for large text and 4.5:1 for small text. And that's gotten me the best results. But it actually does a pretty good job if you go back and complain. So I'll go back to my original and we'll write in, it says, redo this with 3:1 contrast. I did break my wrist, and so I'm not very good at typing right now. 3:1 contrast for small text and 4.5:1 contrast. I can't type for large text. There's nothing, no extra pressure with all of you watching me type.
It always
Okay.
happens, yeah.
So I'm going to try that. And one of the things I learned from you all on your videos on this very channel is, sometimes it's better if you just ask for a little thing at a time.
Yeah.
And so far, with where I've gone with accessibility, asking for one thing at a time has been the most successful. Okay. Oh, they're the wrong way around. It told me I was wrong. I typed it wrong and it told me. It's 4.51 for small. Yes.
Correct you,
Yes. Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Claude. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you
for knowing what I was going to say.
From myself.
Yeah, if anyone has
was-
ever had to type in front of people,
Yeah.
that's the most intimidating thing, yeah.
And I normally type really fast and I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
And I can't write.
The good news is that the majority of the time, spelling doesn't matter
That's
at all.
nice.
Like
Yeah.
the AI just understands all the stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's better or worse.
Yeah.
So
So I can already tell it's saying the text area placeholder was wrong and it was 2.6 and it needs to be 4.5. So that's good. It's finding them. It's doing it. So it does a decent job. And then again, if it misses one thing, and it will, it's gonna get all of it right except for one thing. Then you just go back and you file a complaint with management. And you go, you haven't done this one yet. Or you take a little screen capture of it and you put in the screen capture and say, hey, fix this. So now when I look at it, let's see how it's doing. I probably want to test some of it to make sure. But yeah, that's looking better. I still don't like this, my placeholder text. Now I think it's still rendering. I think that probably would pass.
Okay.
Now I go to a tool called Web Aim Contrast Checker where I can use a color picker tool and go in and I'll spot check it to make sure that it's right.
And what does it do? Does it tell you that's good, that's
Yeah,
bad?
it'll tell you that's good. So here, let me put this on another, let me put this side by side. And let me zoom in a little bit here. So if I'm concerned about this text right here, and I'm not feeling, oh, this is the old one. So I do this, I get my little eyedropper, and this is the foreground, but it doesn't matter which is which. So let me get that gray. without I can't get the gray. There we go. Got the gray. Then I go over here and I get the background color. And it's going to tell me that's a 2.48 to 1.
Okay.
And so for normal text, fail, large text, fail. So that's not good.
So what did you say the ratio was supposed to be?
4.5, let me get this right. 4.5 to 1 for small and 3.3 to 1 for large. So now let me look at the actual one that I just did. Or was it? I did it right here. There we go. Yes, that looks so much better already. I can tell. Once you get good at it, you can just sort of eyeball it a fair amount, and then I just spot check the ones that seem funky. And isn't this fun to just watch? It's like I'm playing a video game trying to get that pixel.
I will never understand like the trackpads. Like I understand what they're for and how they're used and everything, but just using that to get fine tuned, I have to have a mouse every single time I do anything on my computer. Otherwise, it's just over.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm doing that,
Oh, sorry.
yeah. So 4.05 to 1, that's a fail for small text.
Oh yeah.
So it didn't quite get it there. Now I would probably check it again. I think I got it a good pixel, but I would probably double check that. And you'll see you have AA and AAA. Those are just different levels of rigor. So if you want to go all the way to AAA, you need even more contrast. AA is the standard that most organizations strive for. It's what most countries' laws point to, is the AA.
I noticed with Storyline, it has the accessibility checker and it had AA, AAA. So is that what that means?
That's what that is so an example is AAA is more color contrast. AA is closed captions. AAA is closed captions and sign language interpretation. So AAA is just more rigor in a lot of areas, but AA is what's the legal standard.
What do you say when somebody, because accessibility is a lot. So like somebody is wanting to make sure that their content's accessible. What do you say when they're wanting to just get started of like, what's the first things to tackle or the first things to learn with
If you want
accessibility?
to get started, because it is a lot. I would start with color contrast.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to understand, and it impacts a massive number of people. So color blindness varies from demographics. Male Caucasian has the highest incidence of color blindness, and it's 8%.
Wow.
8% of your audience is colorblind to some degree. And that doesn't even count non-colorblind issues. You can have any number of vision issues that make it so you don't see contrast as well, even if it's black and white contrast, because that's not a colorblind issue. Colorblind is what we think of most. So the reason I like to start with color contrast is it affects a big swath of the population. It's easy to understand. You don't have to learn a lot to do it. And it's something anybody can do. Like everybody watching, I'm talking to you. You know, you can start tomorrow saying, I'm never going to have bad contrast again. Now, another pushback I often get though is, oh, but our color palette.
Oh, yeah.
I got to use my corporate colors.
Oh.
And you do, I get it. I totally get the marketing police and, but color contrast isn't about what colors you use. It's about what colors you use on top of each other.
Mhm.
So if your company colors are aqua and orange, you can use aqua and orange. Just don't put aqua on the orange, please. For all that is good and decent, don't put aqua on orange, right?
Yep.
So it's about, do you want people to read? My degree from many years ago was in graphic design, and I took a whole course on typography, and I loved it. And the driving principle behind that course was, you never sacrifice legibility for creativity.
Yeah.
One of the things.
Otherwise, you're kind of missing the point there.
Yeah.
I mean, like even you can be as creative as you want, but if it doesn't get across,
Unless your goal is to make art. And we did in that class. We made typographical art. So if your goal is to make art, knock yourself out. But if you have a message to communicate, legibility is the only thing that matters.
It's an interesting pushback because the majority of brand guides or brand guidelines, they have some sort of an off-white, white, lighter color, even a couple of them, right, that are usually used as accent colors of some kind. So if people are like, oh, we got our brand colors, it's like, yeah, chances are pretty good. You got either a really light gray or a black for the lighter colors if you wanted to do it that way. So yeah, that's, I guess if anybody who knew what they were doing built the palette, right? I guess.
I've never met a palette I couldn't work with. It's
Exactly.
just that what you put on top of each other. So, and mid-range colors are really on trend right now. Mid-range, like again, like aqua. And that's a challenging color to work with for text. But you can make a border around an image. You can make a stripe at the top. You can make, like, there's lots of ways you can use color other than with words. And the smaller the word, the less fun you can have.
I wonder with like putting it in there and having it in and having the actual model not understand it, um, being able to build it in, since you guys are using Claude, using like Claude Design to build the whole project with those instructions built into it with your README, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Setting up a README is really helpful.
For those who don't understand what a README is, do you want to give a little description of that?
Yeah. So it varies how you do it in the different tools, but somewhere in whatever tool you're using, there's a way to set global preferences. So it could be, it could be something in settings where it says, how do you want to work with me? And you just say, hey, make everything WCAG 2.0 AA. Half the time it won't work, but why not at least get the half that does? Setting your preferences can help reduce some of the manual work. So that could be a README file, meaning you make a Word document about, here's how I want you to work with me. Here's my corporate colors, and here's how I like to work. And you say, make everything that I ask for WCAG 2.0 AA compliant. And it's not going to get it all right, but even if it gets 25% better just by having that in there, that can help. And each tool maybe does it a different way. Maybe it's in settings in one tool, or if you are setting up a project, it could be a project document. So there's a lot of ways you can do it, but every tool has a way to do global preferences.
Does it help when you're vibe coding to do like feed it a design doc? Like if you have like a global design doc and you're like, hey, follow these. If you've already established like these are the colors we use, these are the color on color that we use, if that's inside of your design doc.
Absolutely. And even some of the other aspects. So I'll cover a couple of other accessibility tips. And as I mentioned, giving it a global instruction isn't as helpful as giving it some specifics. So we've got a style guide at Artisan Learning that spells out all kinds of things about accessibility, that we use clear heading levels for everything, that our images have alt text, and that it's all keyboard accessible. Like you can just put those in human language as your default. And then you have to go in and intervene where it didn't work. Right. So you want to talk a little bit about keyboard?
Let's go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look. So I'm going to go back to WebAIM for a minute. Part of why I love this WebAIM website is because these folks do accessibility. So if I ever wonder how something should work, this is my best practice. So almost every website you go to works with just a keyboard. So I might not be able to use a mouse. Maybe I have a hand tremor. Maybe I have a limb difference. Maybe I just, I have carpal tunnel surgery or whatever it was. So some people can't use a mouse and they must navigate with a keyboard. And you may not know this, but things that you do all the time with a mouse or your touchpad or your trackball, all mouse-based, you can do with a keyboard only. So here I don't have a mouse, and so I'm on this WebAIM, and I'm going to just start tabbing. So it tabs to the logo, it's tabbing through all of the items. I hit tab, I can type, I hit tab, 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 tab. I gotta get all the way down. That's my color picker. I press space. I can pick my color. I tab out of it or escape out of it. I tab to my slider, and I use my left-right arrows to control my slider. So everything I just did with a mouse or a cursor, I can do with a keyboard. Now, if you use a tool like Articulate Rise, it's going to work almost automatically with the keyboard, even if you've never tried. It just does. You got to do a few things, but it just works. And Storyline, there's a fair amount you have to do to make sure everything's in a logical order so it doesn't,
And that's the tab order, right?
That's the tab order, right. With vibe coding, sometimes it's perfect the first time, and sometimes I have to go in and intervene. So let's check that. So here I am on my calculator. Let's see how I do. So you press tab. I'm at the bottom now because I think I was already in it somewhere.
Yeah.
So tab goes down, shift tab goes back up. So let me shift tab up, and I can type, tab, type. So shift tab, shift tab. Now that should have taken me to the slider. So tab goes between interactive elements. You see it's not, and now I'm up in my browser. So let me go back down. Tab. What's going on? Like my
You're now stuck.
sliders
Yeah.
are not in focus order.
Yep.
And so I pulled up a screen reader because that tells you a little bit better about what's going on. And I found out they actually are in tab order, but there's a thing called a focus indicator. So how did I know where I was? Because it highlights. So for example, right now, Ask Gemini shows the focus indicator. Now it's file, now it's this. Now it's the star, now it's nothing, nothing, text. The nothing, nothing was my 2 sliders. So they actually are keyboard accessible. So I'm gonna go Shift Tab. I should be on average sale. Look, left, right, I am.
Wow.
So I was able to troubleshoot that because I've been doing this for a while. You know, I don't expect everybody, it's their first time on accessibility to go, how would I figure that out? Well, you don't necessarily have to figure it out. You could just take a screen capture of those 2 and say, hey, Claude, can you make these 2 keyboard accessible? And it might come back and say, it already is.
Which I have found with Claude. I've been using Claude Code more than Claude Chat lately, and it has a little highlight tool. So you can actually go into it and you can draw out the area without taking a screenshot, drag out the area and say add to chat, and it adds it to chat. So yeah.
Nice.
I found early on when I was building some of the different games and stuff, just kind of figuring it all out, that I had to actively say, you need to focus on this item. Otherwise, when I opened it up and I hit something and then I tabbed out of it, it tabbed out of the entire thing and back into like storyline or back into, Rise. And then it's like, oh no. And then it would even like advance up so I couldn't see the game anymore. So it's like, okay, no, the tab has to stay within there. So yeah, that's if you don't know it though. Yeah, you're like, what's happening? It doesn't even.
Yeah, I think most people aren't even testing this. Like they're not even going through and clicking on tab to go through their course, even though storyline or Rise, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And so it's about, I could go on a soapbox if we wanted to. But I want my training to have the widest possible audience. And I believe that everybody deserves to get a chance to get better at their jobs. Everybody. Not you get to get better at your job, but only if you can see aqua on white. You get to get better at your job, but only if you can hear because I didn't put closed captions on my video. You get to get better at your job, but not for 3 more months until you get that cast off your wrist. Like, to me, everybody means everybody.
Yeah.
And so running through this. So how do we fix this? Okay. So let's say I didn't think they'd work. I didn't think they worked at all. I'd say, hey, these don't work with a keyboard. Okay. But then let's say I did figure out, oh, they do work. They just don't have a focus indicator. But maybe I don't know that word. So let's just pretend I don't know that word. And I'll say, the 2 sliders don't have that color frame to let me know that's the object I'm on at the time. Okay, let's see if it figures that out for me. And let's hope that I don't. Oh, you're describing a focus indicator. I got a little lesson. That's awesome.
I think it's good to like call out those terms though, or to like pay attention to what it gets back to you there. So
Yeah. And very often I find that when I'm doing this, it will give me a description down at the bottom of everything it fixed. And most of the time I'm like, oh, that doesn't make any sense to me. But every now and then I'll pick up a little something and go, oh, I'm going to tuck that away. So let's try this one now. So I'm going to, let's see. So the slider card border lights up in taupe when you click into either slider, and then it does a double ring halo for keyboard focus. Okay, well, let's give it a try. There we go.
Yeah.
So the whole card activates and it gets the double ring. Like, that's great. So shift tab, tab, arrow, 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 arrow. That's fantastic.
is it good to select the card or is it good to select the slider?
I think either is fine. The goal is clarity. I didn't get super specific. I like the fact that it's the whole card because it's that much more obvious that that's the active indicator.
Yeah.
So
when it comes to not knowing the exact terminology of what to say, a lot of times I'll be like, "Hey, this is what I'm not seeing, this thingy here," and then I'll say, "I need you to ask as many questions as you need to fully understand what it is that I'm trying to ask you before we do anything else." Especially with Claude, because then I burn through my credits just asking silly questions and not knowing, right?
That's
Yeah.
another reason it's good to bake in as much as you can into your either Readme or your prompts, is so that you're not having to go back 20 times. I mean, just prepping for this, I used up my credits for the session. I'm like, okay, let me sit there. Unfortunately, it was only 20 minutes, so I had to sit there.
Yeah.
So the more you can do up front, the better.
So where would you recommend? So if they really want to get accessibility into their vibe code, what are some of the top maybe 3 things you would recommend that they start with?
Yeah, so I would set up something either at a global preferences or at a project level, is to always just ask for WCAG 2.0 AA compliance, or 2.1, 2.2. There's a couple variations. Just ask for it, because it's not going to hurt. It's not going to make it worse than if you had asked for nothing.
Yeah.
But then I would also go and be specific, and I would use the prompt that says use 3:1 for large text and 4.1 for small text. I had to think about that.
Well, if you build it in your design doc or your README file, then you don't even have to think about it going forward, right?
You still have to check, because it's not going to get it right every time. Now, I hope, I mean, every week it does something better than it did before. So I hope that it's going to be a little bit more baked in the future, and you don't have to. I mean, I used to have to ask, can you please give that person 2 eyebrows, please? So my hope is that will go away. But until then, put in the WCAG, ask for good color contrast, and I'll provide you all with some text that you can just drop in that's simple. And let me really clear, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to pass a government audit. But even if you can remove 25% of the barriers, that's good. And you can do these things, this prompt I'm going to give you, you can do even if you have no idea what's going on with accessibility. Your courses will be more accessible. So I'll do something about that. Also, heading levels. You know, like in a Word document, how you have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and it helps you organize a document. Well, it's really valuable for people who can't see, because they don't know that that heading is bigger and it means a topic change. So there's little tags behind the scenes that make it clear that you've got a topic change. So use clear heading tags and all of that. Now, in the meantime, I would hope you learn more about accessibility. And the more you learn about it, the more you can go in and do these targeted interventions like I'm talking about. But until then, drop the text in every prompt or in a global file, and it'll just get rid of some of the barriers for you.
So where can somebody learn about accessibility?
So there's a couple of places that you can learn about accessibility. Artisan Learning is part of a consortium with SweetRush and eLearning to create it's a website called Inspire Accessibility. And we have a feature called the eLearning Accessibility Roadmap, and it's perfect for people just getting started. Now, the site also has a checklist. That's for people who know what they're doing. If you don't know what you're doing yet, don't look at it. It will scare you off. If you know what you're doing, it's awesome. But the roadmap it talks just a big picture about, hey, make sure that everybody can see what you're doing. Hey, let's make sure that you can use a mouse. And so it deals with the concepts around accessibility. And that's a great place, I think, to get started. Then eventually you can go deeper into things like looking at the actual WCAG standard. I do not recommend that anybody start with the WCAG standard. That will also scare you off. So start with the roadmap so you understand what's important to who and why, and then you can get the details from there.
Well, I think it's a good time too, because a lot of people are introducing vibe coding into their workflow. So why not? Now's a great time as you're at the beginning of it. Just add the accessibility stuff in there too.
So what we've seen, I mean, there's just some tips and tricks for, I think, people just to get started and to just go learn about it. I think that makes a huge difference as well. So any other kind of final thoughts you want to leave us with? I know we're pretty much out of time here, but any other, or how can people can connect with you or reach out to you?
My social media of choice is LinkedIn, so you can follow me there, Diane Elkins on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you. The other thing I can recommend, and we'll put a link in comments for you, is if you need to have like big picture discussions in your organization about what this is and why it matters, we've got a virtual card game on our website called Barrier Busting, where you get a card of a learner with a disability and a learning product, and you just have a conversation. So we have Amira who just had wrist surgery, and we have an online conference. And you just stop for a minute and go, what barriers might she have? And what could we do about it? And then you pick a new learner and a new one. And so it's a great way to drive conversation, especially if you're early and you're trying to build your business case and you're trying to wrap your head. It really helps build perspective and empathy towards taking the time to do this work.
Awesome. Destry, you have
No, I think that's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic. I know that I always try to think about this, but sometimes I am lax, right? When I'm building stuff and I get really into it, this is the part that I have to have on my checklist of, hey, don't forget this part here. So no, it's great to see, and building it into my flow or my actual prompts and stuff like that. That's a great tip I'll take away. So
a lot of people want to do it. They just don't know where to start.
Yep.
Don't know where to begin.
It's like a jump rope. It's already spinning. It's hard to get in. I admit it.
All right. Yeah. So if you like this, head on over to our website, vibedojo.ninja. You can also like and subscribe to the video as well so you can see more content like this. And Diane, I'm sure we'll have you back and talk a little bit more. We have a lot to cover on this, so I think it's an important topic. So, all right, that's all we have. Thanks, everyone.
I'll solve it. Spit one prompt and the whole squad evolves quick. Vibe code, baby. Watch what we code. Type one line and I'm switching your mode. Hey!